Some writers stick to one genre, others switched among different forms. Many dislike being placed in categories. Welcome to Oral Tradition and another adventure in Guyanese literature. Let's also welcome an author, a writer, a novelist who has just published his second novel. Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you very much.
The first was taxing, entertaining, and gripping. Let's see what you say about the second novels. Now, the title is a curious title. The Girl with the Pink Pleated Skirt. It took some time getting that, but we'll talk about the title. It begins with a cold case. And then it followed up with a present day murder. And it set the narrator moving, the one who's telling the story. Right. And you said earlier that there was a murder. And from the beginning, you were dropping clues. Hear this thing. Readers like, once is a mystery book, once it's a thriller, once it's something but a murder mystery. Readers like to guess early as to who did it. Now, was your book who done it, or why the person, it was done, or a look into the minds of the criminal? What your book is? What's the function of the book? What you were directing your writing to?
Let me say this. It might be a mixture of both. When I started writing The Girl in the Pink Pleated Skirt, I was writing it without being sure who done it. The writer did not know who the killer was. And that adds to something, because if you can shock yourself, you're going to shock your readers. It's after time I said, oh shucks, I know who killed, but I didn't even know why. I knew who the killer was, but I didn't know why done it until much later. And it was a journey of discovery for me. I didn't use an outline. I did a rough thing and then I just wrote.
Story.
I would go in one direction, say no, wrong direction, throw this away, go in the other direction. But I was writing and discovering things about the characters, about their thoughts, about motivations. And it was exciting. I wasn't watching TV. I didn't need the television. I didn't need to watch it because I was gripped by my story.
Good for you. Yeah.
It was a more exciting journey for me than Cameron. Taxing, of course. And maybe I'm talking in hindsight. Because there were days when I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I can do this. And I go some long walks. Because walking is one of the things that helps me. With the thinking, with the clearing of the mind. And then things would come. And I rush home, put the computer on, type. I have a lot of notes in the computer about this. So that was the journey for writing The Girl in the Pink Pleated Skirt. I knew that I had to write this book. I knew since decades ago probably that I had to write this book.
How come?
It's personal. I was living in Tocqueville. I was 18. I used to carry my little sister to school, East Penningtons, to catch a bus. And there was this girl, very slim, very pleasant looking, standing by herself with this little smile on her face. Pink uniform, pleats. And then one day I come home, pick up the Citizen paper, there's the evening paper that used to have it back then. It's a kind of sensational, tabloidish.
Well, evening papers, like, yeah.
Breaking news. And there on the front page is a photograph of a girl dead in an alleyway in Tocqueville. It's a shocking photograph. It still shocks me, it still shakes me. I used to write with this photograph next to my computer. And it was only later that I realized that that was the girl that I used to see. And I was certain that that was the girl that I used to see because I never saw her again. Sandra Ann Stewart.
Yeah.
I knew her in the sense that I used to see her, and I knew her alleged killer. Because back then we were boys, back then we had a little table tennis club under our house, and everybody from the area would come, the boys, including this particular chap. We'd come, he'd be standing and smiling, pleasant looking, until later you start, after she died, you start to hear that he's a suspect, and you have start to hear the background of him, as a pleasant backstory. But then, the story died. He's on the streets walking. She's dead. She's practically forgotten. And when you ask about her, people hesitant to speak about it or forgot. But I never forgot. I never forgot. I even remember trying to write a story in an exercise book about this murder. It didn't work. And over the years, I kept going back to this story, going back, asking people, and bit by bit I started to get some pieces together. And after Camarang, this is the novel that I started. It took me 3 years, roughly. 5 drafts.
You talk about a culture of forgetting. History is important. You like to browse old newspapers. Talk about this culture of forgetting, because we forget even the big things that happen to us, big events in the life of the country.
For me, our forgetting is, I'll focus on crime. I'll focus on the deaths of loved ones. Sandra Ann Stewart, Monica Reese, Dolly Bash, and it's a long, long list. If you check the newspapers, you see a paper would carry a story for 2-3 days. Let me give you an example recently. Elderly Mrs. Ramakan from Paramakatay. She's practically forgotten, And relatives seem to forget. I think that's the way they deal with trauma. Maybe, because in writing The Girl in the Pink Pleated Skirt, I started to wonder, what was it like for the parents of a child, murdered child, to see the suspect, the prime suspect, the only suspect, walking through their street.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in another culture something might have snapped. It doesn't happen here. We move on. We move on. Maybe it helps us. Maybe there's a safe way. Okay, let me talk about this case. When I go to Tocqueville asking, it's either indifference or, why are you bringing this thing up?
Yes.
Was your girlfriend? And I would say, no. Does it have to be my girlfriend for me to remember, for me to want this case to be solved, It might be a mechanism, it might be something that is old story. And you'd see it in this book, my book, in which people will be telling this reporter, this is ancient history. But for that reporter, it isn't ancient history, it has to be resolved.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
there's a family that is hurting out there.
yeah.
I mean, he asked people of Dalibash. Who?
Yes.
He asked about two women who were dumped in a canal at the back of South Renville, Caneview Avenue. Within a space of a week, I think the bodies were found. Two Jane Does, never known. And we move on. The press moves on too, the media moves on to the next
Sensation.
case. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was a word. That's one of the themes of my novel.
Was it because, let's say, the setting, it's set in Guyana at a crucial time, right? Election time. And you know, and I know, in the field of journalism, that takes up a lot of our attention. Could it have been that? No?
Not that. Actually, I set my novel around that time. But the events, that's the way, our culture. Our culture is to forget. Our culture is to move on. It's safer for us. It's, as I said to you in a discussion, the journalists of the past, they were excellent writers. Excellent writers. But in terms of investigating. And let me tell you a stark example. There was a serial killer who was moving through Guyana in 1969, 1970. No one ever interviewed the policeman who caught him, except me. We do not have a photograph of the serial killer, a clean photograph. There's one when he's going to court, very blurred. What sort of thing is this? You know, you ask yourself that. And I think that part of it is that crime reporting is seen as a stepchild, a bastard child, something somewhere along the line. If you're doing that, you're wallowing in the gutter, so to speak. You have to be up there, parliament, you know.
But sometimes the investigator, the journalist, whoever it is, may be risking their lives to get a story. And you talk about photography just now and a blur photograph. And I remember good photographers, they like to capture every angle of an event, person. And I'm thinking now, why we haven't got photograph of the serial killer?
I don't know. I really don't know. I can't answer the
It's a
question.
great-
I look at it and I say, you know.
It's an art form.
No,
You know what I mean?
what I'm saying.
Something that you should take pride in.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm saying that somebody should have been fired. Somebody should have been suspended.